What's going on, purveyors of the deathly arts? It is I, Brainsmasher, coming at you live from the dungeons of hell. So I said I wasn't going to do another collection update ever again. This isn't a collection update. It's kind of like a collection update, but it's a fuckload better than any collection update ever. Because I have come into possession of the greatest haul I think I've ever taken into my lovely collection. I'm still reeling, I'm still drooling. I can't believe it. I got a ton of shit to show you, and just because I'm an asshole, I'm gonna save the best ones for last. So you better strap your boots on. We're gonna get into some stuff. So, call came in late Friday night, and my buddy who works at Half Price Books, he sent me a picture of this album, Coven's Boneless Christian. Just kind of, you know, funny album title, yada yada yada. He might have also been kind of alerting me, hey, I've got some metal in. Coven is a wonderful thrash metal band from Detroit, Michigan. They are the epitome of tongue-in-cheek thrash, who did 3 albums, and over the course of their albums kind of got more and more brutal, fast, but really did their own thing, honestly. I think this is kind of like the thrash metal version of Macabre, if you will. So yeah, he sent me a picture of this album, and I said, what else you got? So it turns out that there is a local radio station, college radio station here in town, and from what I gather, they're getting rid of their entire CD inventory. You know, from what clues I'm picking up and whatnot. And so, I mean, ordinarily I wouldn't care a whole lot, but seeing this, I was definitely very interested, because this isn't that easy to come by, and it means that there's some, you know, kind of obscure metal from the 90s on CD. There's more. And the thing about it is, too, that gets me really pumped about this, is that these discs are not played very often whatsoever. So the media here is in, you know, varying forms or degrees of condition, but the discs are all fucking perfect, not scratched up whatsoever. So, I mean, the kind of bands that are here, the time period that this stuff represents, the format being my fucking favorite CDs. Man, this is so up my alley. But this was the most expensive trip to a record store that I've ever been a part of. And, you know, I'll talk more and more as we go through these albums. There's a whole shitload more on the way, apparently. So I better get a second job or something, because this wasn't cheap. Let's just say that every album I have here averages out about $12 a piece, which isn't bad, but the total was pretty good, pretty up there. So, Coven, Boneless Christian, into the library. That's my first Coven album, and I've always been a really big fan of the other one. I'm not thinking of it right now. I don't have a copy of it. The one with, it's got an amazing album cover on it. It's got Satan, and his tongue is like a devil, and he's stabbing him and stuff like that. I don't know, it's just escaped me right now because I'm so fucking excited about this. Alright, so I mean, this is just filling up so many holes in the death metal genre in my collection that I've kind of always been meaning to get around to. A couple weeks ago, I picked up the first Necrosanct album up in Madison, and what do you know it, I wind up getting the other 2 Necrosanct albums the very, 2 weeks later. So here is Necrosanct with Incarnate. So you'll see also a lot of commonalities in these albums. Blackmark Recordings is who put out a lot of these. And there were radio station promos, so there's different things that are wrong with the condition on these. A lot of them just have a hole punched in the UPC, which I don't give a shit at all. A couple of them have like a stamp here, not for sale, promotional copy. Again, I don't really give a shit. Some of these are technically a different version from the originals, but pristine fucking condition. And I can't remember where Necrosanct is from, but they are a really unique outfit. The first album that I bought a couple weeks ago didn't really do much for me, but I put this one in the other day, and it fucking, yesterday, I bought all these yesterday, Incarnate, and it was fucking awesome. I need to remember to kind of pick things up. So the other Necrosanct album that I got, I am speaking slowly so that I can find it, there we go, it's called Desolate, and it's also on Black Mark Productions, and I haven't heard this one yet, but I decided to pick it up. Punch in there, no big deal. Comes with this really weird this little card here from Cargo Records. And by the way, Cargo was a US distributor of Black Mark back in the 90s, so I think Cargo is responsible for sending these copies out to radio stations back then. So here it says, exchange card for free Slurpee. Release, Necrosanct. Was received in good condition, yes or no? Will be receiving heavy, medium, light, no airplay. Office hours, can we call you? Can we harass you about playing Necrosanct on the radio? What a weird thing to imagine. So, I mean, I love little kind of goody extras like that. So, my Necrosanct discography is complete, weirdly enough. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that I would just have loved to have had in my collection, but it's kind of out of my price range. So a lot of this stuff was pretty cheap enough for me to finally pick it up. Some of the stuff I was completely unfamiliar with. Some of it was like a band name where I'd heard it but didn't really know what the deal was on them. Like Living Sacrifice. I knew this band was Christian, and they're on Rex Records, which I think is a Christian label, which I think would also put out Sanity Obscure by Believer. But before going in and buying this, I checked this out on YouTube, and it's fucking nasty. Super nasty. Thrash, kind of bordering on death. You know, this is the time period, most of this stuff is around the time period where it's either thrash merging into death metal in like 92, 93 or so, or some of it is just like fucking straight up death metal. No bones about it. But so this is kind of a thrashy death metal band. I don't really know much about them other than they're Christian, and this is really, really nasty. Inhabit, and check out those beautiful, sexy, godly hairdos on those guys. A label that I collect, but you don't see it very often affordable, is Grindcore Records, and this is Cyanide's Dying Truth. Yeah, picked this up on the cheap. I'm not a big fan of Cyanide. I kind of think they're a little bit overrated. I've seen them live, and they were really great, but yeah, I mean, I'll pick up anything on fucking Grindcore. Kind of going through trying to pick up all of their stuff. Yeah, and the booklet here is in immaculate condition. Cyanide. That's been reissued probably 38 fucking times. This is a little newer than the rest of this stuff, but I thought, why not? Lord Belial with Unholy Crusade. I had forgotten that this band had more albums than Enter the Moonlight Gate. Lord Belial is a band that, like, back in the day, I kind of thought of them as like the poor man's Dissection, but I don't know, over time I've always kind of wanted to pick up that End of the Moonlight Gate, so I did. It's actually here. Why don't I so that's also here, End of the Moonlight Gate. This thing came out on No Fashion originally, but Death Records reissued it, or kind of, maybe it's a US version by Death Records or something. I'm not really sure the relationship there. But killer melodic Swedish death metal. And the direction change on this one is a lot more in the thrashy kind of things, and I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot more and more as they went through their career, if you will. But I looked them up last night and saw they had like 6 or maybe 5 albums or so. I was really shocked because I just always think of Lord Belial's Enter the Moonlight Gate, and that's it. Kiss the Goat is another one I hear, I guess, like an EP debut or whatever, some people rave about. But and I would pick that up too. So this is Torture, Torchure. I don't know, if I glanced at this in the bin, I would probably forget about it and, you know, maybe pick it up and go, eh. But I put this on the other day when I was deciding which ones of these to buy. So my buddy sent me pictures of all the albums that were available to me so that I could kind of mull through before I went there and chose what I was going to get. So, and I did leave a lot of stuff behind. I just could not possibly bear to spend any more money on CDs that day. There's a lot of stuff that I already had in my collection, or stuff I had like reissues of, but there were OG copies of stuff in there, like Cemetery, Crematory, Cemetery. I don't know, but I may go back and pick up some more stuff there, even if it's just for my buddies to have some cheaper buys on rare albums. But Torture is a band I was unfamiliar with, and if you are like me unfamiliar with Torture, check out this album, The Essence. It's a German thrashy death metal kind of album. Came out in you know, I don't know, I'm out of my element right here. I'm gonna say 92 maybe. Yeah, I'm seeing some 91, 92s here on an obscure label called like 1MF, something like that, and Cargo Records did their US distribution of it. And the only thing that makes this a promo is that it has a little hole in the booklet here. But this thing goes for buku bucks on Discogs, so I thought, why not? It's fucking awesome, thrashy kind of stuff. Vic Records did reissue this one, and they probably also reissued their other album, which I have here. I picked up 2 albums from Torture. There it is. Beyond the Veil. Better artwork. This is their second full length on the same label. Haven't listened to this one yet. I'm sure it's goddamn godly. And I think I looked it up on Discogs, and yeah, it goes for quite a bit of money. Wouldn't be surprised also if Vic Records reissued that one too. Yeah. So, I don't know. I said I was going to save the best for last, and those were kind of some of the better ones, but not the best. I'm still holding out, motherfuckers. Nightingales. This isn't a huge deal, really. Towards the Twilight, melodic Swedish death metal. Yeah. Always been kind of meaning to pick up this one and a couple others of that band. Never got around to it. Let's see. Nah, too good. Let's see here. Typo Negative, Slow, Deep, and Hard. Somehow I've always had just the disc and never the case. I don't know if I lost the case or something at some point or whatever. But really, really fun album. Quite a bit different from Typo Negative's other material. But yeah, promo on Road Racer. A lot of these releases going forward are going to be on Road Racer. And if you know anything, that fucking label is some rare stuff. Got my first Cataclysm record with Sorcery. Nuclear Blast put this out. Again, just a hole punch there for the promo copy. Not too familiar with Cataclysm. You know, my buddy Tanner and I did that video a couple months ago talking about some of the most challenging albums to get into, and one of his was, I can't remember the name of the album, but I'm gonna get into this one, hopefully. I don't know, I hear mixed things about Cataclysm, so I don't know, I don't have any trepidation about listening to them or owning their stuff. I'm just not sure what is the big deal with Cataclysm. What do you think about Cataclysm? So I accidentally picked up a copy of Comicon's Megatrends and Brutality. Accident because I already have a copy of it. So if you need a copy of it, or I might just wind up sending this to one of my good YouTube buddies, we shall see. So Century Media, when they did promos back in the day, they punched out the UPC code and they put this little stamp here on there. I actually think that kind of looks cool. But if I'm correct in this, I believe one of the guys from Entombed left after Left Hand Path and did Comicon. That's the second album, if I'm not mistaken. And the first one was Converging Conspiracies, which I didn't have a copy of. Kind of a weird oddball sort of project. It's really, really great, but the problem with it is it's got a drum machine on it. And that's only a problem when you get like way back in the mid to early 90s. It definitely is the crutch of this band, and for both albums they used a drum machine, and I just don't understand how between 4 guys that are in other Swedish death metal bands they couldn't find someone who wanted to play drums on their goddamn album. Recorded at Sunlight Studios. Martin Van Drunen, a fucking bolt thrower and a Spix, sings on this. How did they not find a drummer? I don't know, but that is it. Speaking of aspects, Last One on Earth. Man, I still am fucking shaking and drooling from how good this fucking stash was. Yeah, Last One on Earth. I have previously only had like, I can't remember, the Drac, of course. And then the third one, and then maybe another one or something like that. But this booklet is in pristine condition. Amazing. Last One on Earth. Alright, we're a little over halfway through. So, Skin Chamber with Trial. Definitely the oddball of the pile, I guess. I had heard these guys, maybe it was on some Roadrunner sampler or something like that. But these guys never really took off back in 93. Back in 93 on Roadrunner, everything was fucking blowing up, it seemed. But this was kind of a weird industrial kind of project. I don't know if these members were in other bands or whatnot, or this is a side project or what have you, but I've kind of always meant to pick this up. So I finally did. Let's see if the lineup rings the bell here. Paul Lemos and Chris Moriarty. I don't know where they're from. I don't know much about it, but it is really interesting, sort of rigid, like maybe Godflesh kind of, Meat Hook Seed kind of stuff like that. Really cold and like industrial and yeah. Next we've got Sacramentum, Coming of Chaos. So what the radio station did, I think, is they would get the promo sleeves that were a little more like late 90s, and then cut them apart, put them in these jewel cases. So this was really cheap. It's really nothing to write home about all that much, but I've always meant to pick up a copy of this one. I'm not the biggest Sacramento fan, so I'm happy to pick up their record for cheap. That way, I don't know, I got it. Next, we've got a band I don't have much stuff from. I have Agent Orange. That might be it, honestly. But Tapping the Vein, this is a fucking good album. I was wondering, do you guys know, is this the same Dracar? I think it's got to be the same Dracar that puts out, you know, black metal stuff in Europe these days. I think they're out of France. So Dracar, Steamhammer, and Century Media. This is a Sodom album that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but I put it on earlier and it fucking rules. It's just fucking pummeling, unrelenting thrash. Great stuff. So we're getting better and better towards the end of the pile when it's going to get the best. But this is kind of a meh. Skeletal Earth with Eulogy for a Dying Fetus. This came out on Pavement. Actually, this is a reissue. It came out on some other label first, but Pavement reissued it. Oh, there's a Carnage shirt. I have that Carnage shirt. It's too small for me, or I'm too big for it. Which is it? Yeah, nasty stuff. I was never really familiar with these guys. It was cheap enough, decided to pick it up for real. Yeah. Malevolent Creation with Retribution. That's what we're listening to, by the way. Yeah. I don't have any early Malevolent Creation. Kind of always meant to pick it up. I think I have like Joe Black. And I used to have another one of theirs. I got rid of it for some reason. Once I got headfirst into black metal in maybe 99, 2000 or so, I didn't give a shit about death metal. And so a lot of this kind of stuff, you know, like you could have picked up in the year 2000 or so for $3 or $4 or what have you. on eBay or whatnot. But, you know, over the years, I think smart people have snatched these up and held on to them. And so stuff like this goes for a pretty penny because it's great material and it doesn't get reissued that often. That's on Road Racer there. Well, I think it was Brett Hoffman passed away a couple weeks ago. So yeah. Ooh. The record's over. I'm going to flip it over. Alright, so this album just ended and I just put in Enjoy the Violence by Massacra. Wasn't familiar with Massacra. I think I've seen the name, heard the name, whatnot. Can't tell you where they're from, but this shit is fucking awesome. I just love how a lot of this stuff is stuff that I've loved and never got around to picking up. And a lot of this stuff is kind of taking me to school and I'm learning about kind of a lower echelon of high quality bands who only suffered from having their albums not well distributed and not reissued properly or adequately over the years. So, Massacra. Don't know much about them, but we're going to listen to it. So, Tiamat Clouds. Yeah. This might not be that great, but it was pretty cheap, and I'm kind of trying to work my way back through Tiamat, and I put this on for a minute, and it was pretty good. I know the song The Sleeping Beauty. I think it was on Death is Just the Beginning 4 or whatever. But the only thing that made me rethink Tiamat's early stuff was that the LP version of The Ruins of Beverast, Foulest Seaman of the Sheltered Elite, has a cover from their first record. This is their third record. I recently picked up their second album called The Astral Sleep, I think it is, and it's not very good. So I don't know. This might be okay. We shall see. Is that artwork by Christian Wallen? I think that might be a Necrolord album cover. I've never really noticed that about it. Tiamat, I don't know. I've always felt like they had this kind of stink on them because they went gothic or something. But I've kind of heard some mixed thoughts about Sumerian Cry. That's the first one. Is it like Wild Honey? I think some people kind of recommend that one. Maybe a little bit avant-garde. Kind of always meant to give it a second chance or what have you. Anyways, I digress. Sadus, A Vision of Misery. I've never really spent a whole lot of time with Sadus, Road Racer version of that. So, I think most people consider this their best one. With what little I know, we shall see. I cannot believe how good a condition these things are in. Just flawless discs, booklets have just never been perused through. I think what I might do is contact the radio station and find out if they have any other goodies they'd like to get rid of and kick out the middleman, you know what I'm saying? Another good one, I always meant to pick this up. Solitude Eternus, Beyond the Crimson Horizon. This is old school Road Racer version. I really, really love Solitude Eternus. Not one of the bands I put on a whole lot, but you might crucify me, but I think they're better than Candlemass. Robert Lowe is a tremendous vocalist. I think this guy John Perez writes some amazing riffs. And this is just really where it's at. This kind of thing, I think a lot of other bands kind of do not very well. But Robert Lowe fucking brings it. Love that guy's voice. And John Perez can write a fucking song. Heavy riffs. Man, these are in such good condition. Okay. Invocator with Weave the Apocalypse. I've only been familiar with Invocator's Excursion to Mines, I think it is. I love the way Black Mark made all their discs look the same, with just the logo, album title, and then a little bit of whatever song titles down here. I kind of actually like that when labels kind of enforce linear design throughout all their releases. Kind of appreciate that, but yeah, I don't really know much about this. I've listened to it for a few minutes before I decided to purchase this. It was killer. What do we got here? Cargo Records sent this out. Record stores running low on the drugs you need? Well, we can fill your prescription for your oral fetishes with cool records from labels like Headhunter, Fist Puppet? Fist Puppet? Are you fucking serious? Reconstriction, K, Earth? Huh. Clock DVA, shit, yeah. That's so weird. I love these kind of little things. You don't get that with used CDs very often. So this has been such a fun bundle of albums to acquire. And you know what? When it comes down to it, I'm gonna hate to like break up this pile and put them alphabetically back into my collection because they're all gonna be separate. It just kind of makes me. I already get that way about piles when I come home from somewhere with a bunch of goodies. But I digress. I'm gonna alphabetize these sons of bitches. Sinister, Diabolical Summoning. Never got around to picking up these guys. Also got hate. Albums, they're great. The first time I bought a Sinister album was I think in '98 with Aggressive Measures. But these are killer, looking fun. Looking forward to giving these lots and lots of spins. I've always loved how these guys are kind of typical death metal, but they're maybe a little bit more ham-fisted, a little more knuckle-dragging. They're like, where some bands may play something a little bit more melodic or musical, they are just beating your skull in with a hammer. I don't really know a better way to put it, but there you have it. So, the last three. Atheist. Unquestionable Presence. Came out on Death Records. Technical, Floridian, thrashy death metal. Produced by Scott Burns. I listened to this today. It is fucking great. Check out these colors. It's in beautiful condition. So the radio station wrote their call letters on the discs. Kind of thinking about trying to see if I can get those taken off or whatever. But killer album if you like technical Floridian kind of stuff. It kind of reminded me listening to it that Cynic wasn't really all that much of an oddball now that you look at it. Yeah. So, next to last, Imperial Doom by Monstrosity. You know, I had been kind of wanting to get a copy of this for years and years and years, and I finally looked it up on Discogs to see what it costed, and I decided, fuck that shit. This thing goes for a lot of money. And I did pay some money for it. Many years ago, I never followed through with this. I kind of wish I would have. I was going to do something called Death Metal Dioramas. And at my work, we had gotten rid of some like shelving. And we had these boards that were like 12 by 12 square. And so I was going to make these 12 by 12 cubes and build within them or recreate 3D versions of album covers. Mostly Dan Seagrave, of course. I never got around to it, but this was one of the album covers that I always wanted to recreate. Such a good album. Yeah, happy to have that in my goddamn collection. Alright, the big finish. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably already know what this is, but here you go. For Never Laid to Rest by Seance. Man! What a fucking album. And, I don't know, just... I had been pining for this album so hard for the last few months. Amazing Dan Seagrave artwork. In fact, last weekend, the very day after my buddy alerted me to the presence of some metal albums, I thought, you know what, I'm never going to get a chance to buy this fucking thing on CD. So I went ahead and I ordered that new reissue of it on LP. LP's not my fucking preferred format, so I was reluctant about it, but it was pretty cheap. Went ahead and got it, so now I've got all the Seance albums. Picked up their third one a couple weeks ago up in Minnesota. This is great. It's not just a rarity. It's not just something that needs to get reissued. It's not just an underground, underappreciated classic. regardless of all the esteem that it deserves, it's a fucking amazing death metal record. If you haven't heard Seance for Never Laid to Rest, it's fucking killer. Give it a listen. Give these all a listen if you feel like getting your skull crashed in. Thanks for joining me. It's been fun. Get out in those bins. It's out there. Find it before I do. See you next time.